Hello and welcome to Farmspace. Right, so we are here at the birth of SUCo South Africa today. A really historical moment. I'm speaking to Herman Els. He's going to give me a little bit of a rundown exactly what it is and why this is so important for the viability of the whole wildlife industry and our heritage in South Africa and the broader world actually. So let's find out. Herman, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
It's just a pleasure. So, okay, SUCo, give me a good idea. What is SUCo and what do you guys do?
SUCo stands for the Sustainable Use Coalition of Southern Africa. We are a coalition of 9 associations which came together to try and ascertain the economic sustainable use of our wildlife resources in this country. Because there is an international unbelievable pressure from the anti-hunting and the animal rights groups in managing our wildlife.
So you're telling me that there's people sitting outside of the industry wanting to tell the industry how it must live its life, and even though they've got no real clue in terms of what's going down on ground level, and maybe in some instances have totally different agendas than the sustainability of the wildlife industry in South Africa and Africa.
Andre, the shocking thing is that these people sit overseas. They sit in New York and they sit in London and they sit in Brussels. And they have inputs into the national agenda about wildlife management in its totality. They have taken over the IUCN, which is an international body looking at the sustainable use of wildlife all over the world. The same with CITES, which is the international body which looks at the trade in natural resources, which that plants or animals or whatever. And both of these associations or organizations which started out to look at the benefit of wildlife in its totality, whether it's plants or animals to humans, have now been absolutely taken over by these people with this absolutely anti and negative agenda. And the upshoot of this is a total destruction of Africa's elephant because of the ban on ivory trade, and an absolute destruction of the rhino population in this country, which had a tremendous growth and is actually a very big success.
But they actually prevented the hunting of animals of elephants. So how does that? If there's more elephants, then it's better that there's more elephants because that protects the species. Or have I got this wrong?
No, no, it's not necessarily wrong. Anywhere in the world where humans have been able to benefit from wildlife, whatever that might be, whether I say again, whether it's plants or whether it's animals, their wildlife thrives. The moment you start putting barriers on the use of wildlife and the sustainable use of wildlife, wildlife goes because it loses its value to the people who look after these things. That's why we've got 13,000 game ranches in this country. Because game ranches in this country function because the animals on the game ranch have a value to the people who farm with it. And that's why we have them. I mean, the hunters go there and they hunt. They sell these animals at auction. So it means it has a value to them. The most fantastic place to look at this is the campfire program in Zimbabwe, where the Department of Nature Conservation says you can this year hunt 2 elephants in this tract of land. You can hunt 10 kudus, 15 or 50 impala and that sort of thing. And then hunters come in with professional hunters and they hunt them. At the end of the season, the professional hunters brings the packets of money like this, and they put it in front of the community and they say, you remember that elephant there? This is this money. You remember that kudu there? This is this money. You remember that impala there? This is this money. And they distribute that money amongst the people of the community. And listen to this. They give every person in that community 200 Zim dollars. That was a few years ago when a Zim dollar was 2 to 1 rand.
Yeah.
That made a 30% difference in annual income for those families. And it was worth their while to live with wildlife because of this income. And that's the only reason why campfire worked. The same in Zambia with the AdMade program. And what happens now is that the green agenda is killing this. Because the green agenda says no use of animals, no hunting of animals, don't cull animals.
So because that's what but in theory that makes sense, because if you don't kill the animals, there will be more of the animals. Isn't that true?
Well, Andre, animals don't live by their own grace. Wildlife on this planet, I say again, whether that's plants or water or fish or game, lives by the detriment of human beings. Human beings decide what happens to them. And if you don't manage these animals, because remember the human population is growing, so you've got to manage these animals, otherwise you have total destruction of the environment. It's happening in Botswana. The figure of elephants in Botswana at this stage is more than 311,000 elephants. In a country which is reckoned to have a carrying capacity of elephant, if you want equilibrium between all of the game species, in terms of utilizing habitat, is 60,000.
So 5 times.
5 times the carrying capacity. And the destruction which elephants are causing to the habitat in Botswana is visible. And it's going to become serious and more serious. So, and one can't make a prediction, but I tell you now that in 30 years' time, if this continues, the habitat in Botswana will be totally destroyed. We will lose, or Botswana will lose all the elephant, they will lose all the game, and they will lose the third most important part of their income, which is wildlife tourism. And you tell me that's not criminal if you continue listening to scientists and you continue listening to the green agenda? Of course it's criminal. If you want to stop this, and of the 311,000 elephants, you cull 100,000. How do you cull 100,000 elephants? What do you do with the carcasses? And then you don't stop the degradation, you only prolong the degradation. And that's the result of the green agenda. And that is the thing that we've got to manage. The Kruger National Park is exactly on the same track. The indications are, because the figure of elephants in the Kruger National Park is a very, very state secret, one of the biggest state secrets. I compare it to the nuclear state secrets of the previous government. Nobody knows what it is. But the guys in know will tell you that the carrying capacity of Kruger National Park for elephant is somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000. And the guys in the know say that we're close on 40,000 elephant in the Kruger Park. Make it less, make it 35.
But that's already 5 times.
It's very close to 5 times. So it's exactly the same as the situation in Botswana. The point is this, that the wildlife in Botswana is the heritage of the people of Botswana. The wildlife in Kruger National Park is the heritage of us as South Africans, all South Africans. The question is this, if you want to talk about responsible conservation, that cannot be described as responsible conservation. And you don't have to look far. We lost 8,300 rhino in 6 years because of poaching. Only because the market of rhino horn is closed, irrespective of whether rhino horn sales in China has been banned for 2 decades already. The black market exists. Every rhino horn you take away from a syndicate makes the syndicate's rhino horn more profitable. Every tusk you burn in Kenya, like they did, makes the tusks and the ivory which is in possession of a syndicate overseas more valuable. Can't people understand this?
Totally agree. So at the end of the day, SUCo, basically, your mandate is to engage with government on various different levels and make sure that a sustainable model for everyone is put on the table, put forth, so that we can protect our heritage for future generations, because otherwise there will be nothing.
Andre, that's what we want to do. We don't want to fight. We've got a voice. We've proven our track record. We've got more animals on game ranches than in any protected area in this country. We want to speak with government about how do we do this sustainably on an economic, sustainable utilization model, and not based on a continuous green and anti utilization agenda. And that seems to us, after the high-level panel's report and the proposed policy, which the department has brought out in terms of lion, leopard, the two rhino species, elephant, it seems as if they're going in a direction where biocentrism becomes, in other words, animals, becomes a focus, and larger tracts of land. Our question is who are you going to move? Who's going to pay for this? The government can't have the conservation areas, the national conservation areas and the provincial conservation areas are managed for naught. They are gone. They only benefit the people who work there. Kruger National Park is something different, and other national parks, but the provincial parks is gone. So why would you want more land? Whereas we've got 13,000 game ranches, which is approximately 17 to 18% of the land, plus the 7% to 8% of protected areas. We're very close to the 30%, which the international community wants to be in protected areas. But government and the guys who make the policy do not see game ranching as guys with enough responsibility on their farms to call those farms protected areas. We don't want that. All we say is please acknowledge the fact that game ranches in this country has made a massive contribution, and that is sustained by hunting. And if we challenge that, we will lose all our wildlife, because the manner in which the conservation authorities are managing our wildlife areas is irresponsible. I reiterate, we are not on a fighting path. We want to talk with us. We have answers, and together we must manage these things for our people. People sitting in London and in New York and in Brussels cannot decide for us in this country what we should do and how we should manage our natural resources. The answers are with us, and we would like to speak to government to make sure that we get this going in the right direction.
Right, so that's Herman Els from SUCo. I can't reiterate enough how important this organization is in terms of strengthening the whole industry's hand, in terms of talks with government and so forth, and really be able to protect our heritage, and so that we can make the whole industry sustainable going forward. So it's here from Farmspace. Until next time, cheers.